Are you noticing some changes in your boss's behavior and you're wondering, is my boss threatened by me? In this video, we're going to talk about the signs that your boss is threatened by you and kind of how you can fix it. So stay tuned, we got some awesome tips for you. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Ben Preston, author of Harness Your Butterflies and creator of the Career Accelerator program to help you create the career that you've always wanted to create. This is going to be a really interesting topic. I had someone email me about this and ask why their boss was treating them differently all of the sudden. And it occurred to me that the signs and symptoms that they were talking about were things that typically show up when a boss is threatened by you or feels like you're more competent than they are. I think that other people are probably struggling with this too, of figuring out why their boss might not like them or why their boss treats them a little bit differently. So in today's video, I want to talk about 7 signs that your boss is threatened by you. Let's get into it. If you're new to the channel, if you haven't been here before, hit the subscribe button. Also, drop me a thumbs up for the YouTube algorithm, and let's jump into the tips. The first sign that your boss is threatened by you is that your projects change for the worst. If you notice that your projects have started getting a little bit less high profile, a little more individually focused, might be a sign that your boss is threatened by you. Typically what happens is when a boss views you as a potential threat, either to take their job or to get promoted above them, which does happen, they will try to remove you from the executive's sight. So what that might look like is you're working really hard, you're high performing, you're a rock star, the executives above your boss are commenting on how great you're doing, and what happens is your boss gets a little bit nervous and starts to try to push you down a little bit to make you look like you're less of a high performer and therefore less of a threat to their job or their security in their role. Now, they might do this intentionally or unintentionally, but if you've noticed that you used to be sort of like the star child or the star employee on your team, and now all of a sudden you're starting to work on these projects that really don't make very much sense for no reason. Sometimes supervisors will tell you, hey, like this is a really challenging project, we trust you to do it. That's a good sign, but sometimes they won't tell you anything and they'll just say, these are how your job, or this is how your role is going to shift, and you kind of are left wondering, why is this happening? This doesn't really make sense to where I want to go, that type of thing. It's a very clear sign that your boss is probably threatened by you. The second sign is that your name doesn't come up. Now, if you have worked on a project that's been really tough, or if you're part of a team that has executed something really, I guess, impressive, typically what happens is a good supervisor, a good boss, will present your name to the rest of the organization and say, I want to say shout out to this team or these individuals for this hard work. So what might happen is during this past pandemic, a lot of IT teams have been recognized for their outstanding support in helping teams become all of a sudden mobile and being able to work remotely. Now, a lot of organizations would say, hey, thank you IT team, or thank you these individuals for working overtime, putting in the extra hours, making sure that all of our infrastructure is safe, all of that type of thing. Now, if you've noticed that in those remarks or in those emails or in those presentations or in those conversations that your name is missing and you were a big contributor to that project, very clear sign that your boss is trying to push you down, or your boss is trying to not give you as much spotlight as what you might deserve. And at the end of the video, I'll give you a quick little synopsis of how you can kind of pivot this and help and make sure that your boss is recognizing you and giving you the projects that you deserve. The third sign that your boss is threatened by you is your opinion is silenced. Now, if you found that in the meeting, you try to speak up or you try to say something and your boss talks over you, your boss discounts your opinions, your boss says that your idea might not work, sometimes that's just how they are. Some bosses are a little bit more on top of employees than others, but a normal manager would let you say your piece and then would consider it as part of an option when you're talking about the overall project or the direction or strategy of what you're trying to accomplish. If you've seen that your boss is constantly talking down to you, when you speak your mind or speak your opinion, your boss discounts it or talks over you, that's probably a sign that they're threatened by you and they're trying to own the authority in the room when really you might be the one that knows more about whatever you're talking about than they do. And not all managers do this intentionally. Sometimes if they just feel threatened, they feel like they have to assert their dominance in the room, which is a very unhealthy behavior, but that's another sign that your boss is threatened by you. you. The fourth sign that your boss is threatened by you, you are labeled as difficult. Now, for a while, this label used to only be used in a non-positive way, in a negative way toward female employees when they were viewed as not being a team player. They were called difficult. Now in 2021 or even beyond, a lot of really bad managers will use the word difficult to describe any employee that they don't really want to work with or that they have a personal vendetta against. When you're labeled as difficult, typically what that means is that your supervisor views the work that you're doing as opposed or different to their vision and what they want to accomplish. Now, what you're doing might make more sense, might be more cost efficient, might be more innovative or strategic, but your supervisor is saying, this is how I want things to be done, therefore this is the only way that things should be done. If you veer away from that and start doing something that's more cost effective, more innovative, more strategic, your boss is gonna try to wrangle you back and they're gonna label you as difficult because you're not complying with their old way of doing things. Now, if that becomes a dynamic that's really unhealthy, your boss will become threatened by you. You'll start to notice that you are being associated with being difficult, whether you're in team meetings, whether you're getting reports to the executives, people will start to kind of view you as someone that's not a team player. Don't take it personally, it's just a sign that your boss is threatened by you. The fifth sign that your boss is threatened by you, you have formal action taken against you. Whether it is a performance improvement plan or a skipped promotion or a skipped pay raise, that might be a sign that your boss is threatened by you. If you've noticed that you were, again, a rock star, a high performer, someone who was getting pay raises every year or cost of living increase every year, you notice that you were really outperforming, and then all of a sudden you end up not getting anything, or you get sort of a performance improvement plan or something like that, that's almost like the polar opposite of a high performer, probably a sign that your boss is intimidated by you. What that means is your boss is trying to set you up so that you are kind of stuck in this loophole of constant improvement, constant improvement, constant improvement. And what they will do is every time you are in these cycles of improvement, they'll move the mark just a little bit further so that you're always the person that's striving to be average, as opposed to we're gonna leverage your strengths, we're gonna leverage what you're good at. And typically these performance improvement plans happen when an employer takes you from the projects that you're really, really good at and moves it to projects that don't really mean anything, projects that don't align with your strengths, projects that are really outside of your zone of expertise, and then they clock you for not being good at your job. Again, I'll talk about how to remedy to this at the end, but that's a sign that your boss is threatened by you. Number 6. You're feeling stuck. If you felt like you were on a really great path, you saw your mobility forward, you saw your direction, you saw where you were going, and all of a sudden you're stuck, and a lot of it has to do with your manager, it's probably a good sign that your boss is threatened by you, because what they're doing is they're making you feel like you don't belong in the organization, and they're kind of taking away any options of you moving up in the organization or feeling like you belong in the organization because they want you to leave. And number 7, the last sign that your boss is threatened by you, other executives stay away from you. If you notice that you used to be networking a lot internally and you were talking to all these different executives, and then all of a sudden you notice that they kind of avoid you or they stop talking to you, it might be that none of your projects overlap with what they're working on, but more likely it's a chance that your boss has been talking negatively about you to those executives and they view you as a red flag or a problem, and that's a sign that your boss is threatened by you. What do we do if our boss is threatened by us? The very first thing that you want to do is figure out why. You don't need to dive super deep into their psychology, the reasons that they might hate you, but it might be 1 or 2 incidences where you maybe called them out in a meeting, made them feel embarrassed, and now they feel like they need to regain the leadership position. So if you can identify what the situation was or what pinpoint specific why they might be threatened by you, it'll be super easy to bounce back from that. But what happens is, as soon as you identify it, you want to make sure that you have a conversation with your supervisor. Don't ask them if they're threatened by you, but just make sure that they're aware that you work for them and you work for the organization, that you really want to make sure that they look good. You kind of want to stroke their ego a little bit, not too much to the point where you're becoming a brown noser, but just enough to make sure that they know that you are on their team and not the other way around. And make sure that you're documenting everything that you're talking about, and making sure that if it's something where and most of the time it's not malicious, but if you view that it is something malicious, you might want to file a report with your human resources department or your ethics committee to make sure that whatever's happening doesn't continue. Now, if your boss is super receptive to this idea of you being a part of their team, that might be a good conversation to segue into saying, here's what I've noticed. I've noticed that I haven't been on as many high profile projects. I haven't noticed that the stuff has really been aligning with my strengths. Those types of conversations go really, really far. If you can kind of pivot your boss and get them to recognize that they've been taking these actions against you, if it's a good supervisor, they're gonna say, oh, let me figure out how to remedy this, and then we can move forward. So if you've noticed that if a lot of executives are ignoring you and that a lot of the feedback that you've been getting from your supervisor is super negative, you might just say, I feel like we need to get realigned. Let's talk about what we can do to make sure that we're both on the same page and we're both performing and showing the executives what we can do. Because at the end of the day, if your boss looks really good, then you look really good. If you look really good, your boss looks really good. So if you are able to kind of say to your boss, hey, every time that I do something great, that reflects positively on you, and get that point across, your boss is gonna really change the tune and make sure that you're a high-performing employee again. If this video was helpful for you, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, leave me a comment, drop a thumbs up for the YouTube algorithm. I have new videos every Tuesday, so I will see you there. If you're looking for more info, check out this video here.